Today, I'm going to share something that might feel like a top secret revelation, but it's actually rooted in biology, psychology, and some of the most cutting-edge neuroscience we have today. This isn't magic, it's not fantasy, it's real, observable, and it works. What I'm about to share with you can quite literally change how your brain filters reality, processes goals, and activates internal systems that lead to extraordinary outcomes. We now understand through decades of research that the human brain is not just a passive observer of life. It's a goal-setting, reality-shaping, pattern-recognizing machine. And once you learn how to tap into specific neural circuits, activate key brain-body connections, and direct your focus and emotions strategically, you begin to manifest outcomes not through force, but through alignment. This isn't about just thinking positive or wishing hard. It's about applying what we know from the science of attention, the biology of belief, and the chemistry of motivation so that what once seemed impossible becomes not only likely, but inevitable. Clarity of vision is not just a motivational phrase, it's a neurological imperative. The brain is constantly filtering through massive amounts of sensory data every second. In fact, it receives over 11 million bits of information per second, but it can only consciously process about 40 to 50 of those. What determines which bits are chosen? It's your focus. More specifically, it's the clarity of your intention and the precision of your goals that direct this focus. The reticular activating system, or RAS, is a key neural network in the brainstem responsible for filtering sensory information and determining what gets passed on to your conscious awareness. When your vision is clear, when your goals are specific and emotionally charged, the RAS begins to seek out cues in your environment that align with those goals. It's almost as if you're programming your brain to tune in to the exact frequency of your desires. Clarity isn't about writing vague affirmations or setting broad resolutions like "I want to be successful." The brain doesn't respond to ambiguity with action. What it responds to is specificity. Neuroscientific studies have shown that when individuals visualize specific outcomes with measurable detail, the prefrontal cortex and motor cortex both light up as if the brain is rehearsing for actual execution. This kind of mental rehearsal has been proven to enhance performance in athletes, musicians, surgeons, and entrepreneurs. When you take the time to create a vivid, multisensory mental image of your goal, you are activating the same neural circuits involved in real experience, thus training the brain and body to recognize opportunities and take action without resistance. Clarity of vision also creates what psychologists call a cognitive bias in your favor. Once a clear goal is defined, your perception changes. You start seeing opportunities that were always there but filtered out due to lack of relevance. It's like buying a red car and suddenly noticing red cars everywhere. The world hasn't changed, your filter has. With a well-defined vision, you alter your internal filter, and that alters how you interpret external reality. This is why people who journal their goals, who write vision statements, or create vision boards often find themselves achieving those goals, not because the act itself is magical, but because it brings sharp clarity to the mind and programs the brain to seek alignment. Another important aspect of clarity is emotional tagging. When a goal is attached to a strong emotional reason, a purpose, a personal why, it gains more power in the brain's reward system. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with motivation and drive, is released when the brain senses progress toward a meaningful outcome. But that only happens when the goal is defined well enough for the brain to recognize progress. If your goal is vague, progress feels invisible. If it's specific, the smallest steps release dopamine, reinforcing your momentum. That's why clarity of vision is actually a performance tool. It's how you chemically fuel the journey by hacking your brain's built-in reward mechanisms. There's also a crucial interplay between clarity and focus. The more clearly you define your goal, the easier it becomes to eliminate distractions. Attention is a finite resource. Just like you can't split a flashlight beam in 10 directions and expect to see clearly, you can't divide your focus across too many undefined goals and expect consistent achievement. Clarity allows you to say no to what doesn't align. It sharpens your sense of purpose and reduces mental fatigue, decision paralysis, and emotional conflict. When the vision is clear, not only does the brain align, but your entire physiology begins to support that direction. Cortisol, the stress hormone, tends to drop when the mind feels a sense of direction. Uncertainty breeds stress, but a clear outcome, especially when it's paired with a plan and emotionally meaningful to you, calms the nervous system and creates a sense of inner confidence. This doesn't mean all anxiety disappears, but the body interprets challenge as a meaningful mission rather than a threat. That's a massive shift, both biologically and psychologically. In the long run, clarity creates a type of neuroplastic commitment. When the brain is exposed to the same idea repeatedly in clear, defined terms, and especially when that idea is emotionally charged, it begins to restructure itself. Synaptic connections strengthen around that goal. Neural pathways are pruned and rewired. The brain, in essence, becomes that vision. And once your brain is aligned with a specific vision, you are no longer relying on willpower. You are operating from identity, from internal congruence. Everything from your perception to your decisions to your emotional responses begins to serve the vision you've made clear. Focused attention is one of the most powerful tools we have for shaping our internal and external reality, and it is deeply rooted in the way the brain and nervous system function. At any given moment, we are bombarded by countless inputs: visual, auditory, emotional, environmental, but the brain has a mechanism to sift through all this noise and highlight what matters most. That mechanism is attention, and it operates like a spotlight. Wherever your attention goes, neural resources follow. This means that if you learn how to direct your attention deliberately and consistently toward a desired outcome, you begin to build stronger neural circuits associated with that goal. Over time, this creates a kind of mental magnetism where your thoughts, behaviors, and even opportunities begin to align with what you're focused on. From a neuroscience standpoint, attention is governed by multiple brain systems, particularly the prefrontal cortex, which is involved in decision-making, and the parietal cortex, which plays a role in spatial awareness and focus. When you concentrate on a goal or a specific intention, you are engaging these brain regions in a very targeted way. This engagement doesn't just help you stay mentally aligned, it also primes the nervous system to support that direction. Heart rate, breathing, and even the release of certain neurotransmitters, such as dopamine and acetylcholine, become synchronized with the act of focused attention. These chemicals enhance motivation, increase memory retention, and solidify neural pathways related to the subject of focus. The power of focused attention is perhaps most dramatically illustrated through the concept of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change and rewire itself based on experience and input. Neuroplasticity is not a passive process. It responds most strongly to repeated, focused, and emotionally meaningful inputs. This means that if your attention is scattered or constantly shifting, the brain doesn't get the consistent signals it needs to restructure around your goals. But if your attention is stable and directed, especially when tied to strong emotion or visual imagery, the brain interprets that input as important and begins to make structural changes accordingly. That's how habits are formed, skills are learned, and transformations are sustained. This is why multitasking is often the enemy of progress. It divides attention, dilutes focus, and prevents the brain from reaching the depth of processing necessary for real change. Shallow attention creates weak connections. Deep, focused attention creates strong, lasting neural pathways. So when you commit to focusing intently on a goal, whether that means visualizing it daily, studying it, acting on it, or simply returning to it in moments of distraction, you are telling your brain, this matters. And the brain responds by giving it more resources, more energy, and more space in your awareness. One of the most fascinating things about focused attention is how it actually changes your perception of time and energy. When you're fully engaged in a task or aligned with a vision, time can seem to slow down or speed up depending on the activity. This is often referred to as a flow state, a state of optimal performance where action and awareness merge and distractions fade away. Flow states are highly dependent on focused attention. When you're in flow, your brain releases a cocktail of neurochemicals that enhance creativity, problem solving, and performance. These states are not random. They are the byproduct of sustained, intentional focus. Attention acts as a feedback loop. The more you focus on something and see results, the more motivated you become. That motivation further sharpens your attention, and the cycle continues. This is especially true when you combine attention with deliberate practice or structured routines. Each repetition strengthens the neural circuits involved, and with time, your brain begins to prioritize those circuits, even during rest or subconscious processing. This is why people who are deeply focused on a goal often dream about it, get spontaneous insights related to it, or find themselves making intuitive decisions that align with it without conscious thought. Their brain has been trained through attention to serve that intention even when they're not actively thinking about it. It's also important to recognize the role of attentional filters. These are cognitive mechanisms that help you ignore relevant information and zoom in on what matters. The more you focus on a specific idea or outcome, the better your brain becomes at ignoring distractions that don't serve it. This doesn't just make you more efficient, it literally shapes your reality. You begin to see opportunities, connections, and patterns that others miss, not because they aren't there, but because your mind has been trained to detect them. Focused attention tunes your perception, just like adjusting the dial on a radio to hear a specific frequency more clearly. The clearer the frequency, the stronger the signal your brain receives. Emotional intensity plays a critical role in shaping the brain's ability to encode, retain, and act upon information. Neuroscience has revealed that the more emotionally charged an experience is, the more likely it is to be stored deeply in memory and influence future behavior. This is because the brain does not prioritize neutral information in the same way it does emotionally significant information. At the center of this process is the amygdala, the brain's emotional processing center, which communicates directly with the hippocampus, the region responsible for memory formation. When emotional intensity is high, the amygdala signals to the hippocampus that the moment is important, thus enhancing the encoding and storage of that information. This explains why we often remember highly emotional events in vivid detail and why those experiences can have long-lasting effects on our beliefs and actions. When it comes to manifesting a goal or intention, emotional intensity acts as an amplifier. A goal that is associated with strong emotion, whether excitement, passion, urgency, or even fear, registers in the brain as more important. This emotional salience triggers a cascade of neurochemical responses that reinforce attention, motivation, and memory. Dopamine, often referred to as the motivation molecule, is released when we anticipate a meaningful or emotionally charged reward. This dopamine release doesn't just feel good, it also strengthens the neural pathways that support the behavior or thought pattern that led to the release. Over time, this reinforcement builds momentum, making it easier to return to the thought, the vision, or the action again and again. This is why people who attach a deep emotional why to their goals are often more successful in reaching them. The emotional charge behind their vision gives it weight in the nervous system. The stronger the emotion, the more likely the brain is to prioritize the related goal above other competing stimuli. It also increases the likelihood that the person will take consistent action because emotional energy drives behavior far more powerfully than logic alone. This is not just a matter of willpower, it's a biological reality, rooted in how the limbic system influences the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for planning and decision-making. Visualizations and affirmations become far more effective when infused with emotional intensity. Simply repeating words without emotional engagement is unlikely to lead to change because the brain does not assign significance to flat repetition. However, when visualization is paired with strong, heartfelt emotion, when you can feel the joy, gratitude, pride, or excitement of the desired outcome as if it's already happening, the brain responds as if the experience is real. Functional MRI studies have shown that when individuals visualize emotionally engaging outcomes, the same brain regions activate as when those outcomes are actually experienced. This mental simulation, when done with emotional depth, creates real biological shifts that prime the mind and body for manifestation. In the process of emotional imprinting, repetition also plays a role. When an emotionally intense vision or thought is repeated regularly, especially in moments of quiet focus like just after waking or before sleep, it begins to shape the subconscious mind. The subconscious operates largely through habitual programming, and emotional intensity is one of the fastest ways to rewrite those programs. Repeated emotional experiences carve deep grooves into the neural landscape, making certain thoughts and behaviors feel natural and automatic over time. This is how identity is formed, not just through thought, but through emotionally reinforced thought. Emotional intensity also fuels resilience. When challenges arise, as they inevitably do, those with emotionally charged visions are less likely to give up. The emotional weight of their goal makes the struggle feel worthwhile. In moments of doubt or fatigue, that intensity can reignite motivation and provide a sense of meaning that logic alone cannot. Studies in the field of behavioral psychology have shown that people are far more likely to persist in difficult tasks when the outcome is emotionally meaningful to them, even if the odds of success are uncertain. Emotion adds grit, tenacity, and fire to the process of transformation. The ability to access and cultivate emotional intensity is something that can be trained. It involves reconnecting with the deeper reasons behind a goal, vividly imagining the outcome, and generating the physiological and emotional states associated with that outcome. Breathing techniques, music, posture, and even recalling past emotional highs can help trigger the necessary state. Once accessed, this emotion should be deliberately linked to the goal or visualization being practiced. Over time, this pairing forms a powerful neural association that can be activated on demand. Emotional intensity, when harnessed intentionally, becomes not only the fuel but the signal to the brain that says, "This matters deeply." Daily visualization is one of the most effective tools for rewiring the subconscious mind because it creates a direct line of communication between your conscious intentions and the deeper, automatic processes that drive your behavior. The subconscious mind governs nearly 95% of our daily thoughts, feelings, and actions. It's a system built on repetition, emotion, and pattern recognition. Visualization taps into all of these mechanisms by allowing you to rehearse your desired outcomes, not only mentally but also emotionally and physiologically. When you visualize something with consistency and clarity, you create new neural pathways in the brain, essentially training it to recognize that imagined future as familiar, possible, and achievable. Scientific studies using brain scans have shown that the brain does not distinguish strongly between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. The same neural networks are activated during both actual performance and detailed visualization of that performance. This phenomenon is especially evident in athletes, musicians, and performers who use visualization as part of their training. When done correctly, daily visualization strengthens the mental blueprint for success, making it more likely that your subconscious mind will guide you toward decisions and behaviors aligned with that image. Over time, the imagined scenario starts to feel like second nature, and the mind begins to treat it as part of your identity. For visualization to be truly effective in rewiring the subconscious mind, it needs to be done daily, ideally in a state of relaxed focus. The moments just after waking and just before sleep are particularly powerful because the brain is in a more suggestible, slow-wave state. In this state, the critical, analytical part of the mind, the conscious mind, is less active, and the subconscious is more open to influence. Practicing visualization during these windows allows the imagined experience to bypass resistance and sink deeper into your internal programming. This is the same principle that makes hypnosis and deep meditation so effective in facilitating change. When the brain is relaxed, it's more plastic and more receptive to new inputs. The subconscious mind learns through repetition, so daily consistency matters far more than intensity. Small, repeated doses of mental imagery work better than occasional, intense sessions. When you visualize your goals consistently, you are sending a repeated message to your subconscious that this image is important. That message, over time, becomes embedded in your identity and begins to influence how you think, feel, and act. You begin to unconsciously filter the world through the lens of that vision. You start to notice people, opportunities, and resources that align with your desired reality, not because they suddenly appeared, but because your subconscious mind is now attuned to them. Another critical factor in effective visualization is emotional involvement. When you imagine your goals, it's not enough to see them, you must feel them. Emotions act as the glue that binds the imagined scenario to your subconscious. The more vividly you can experience the emotional state associated with your goal, whether it's joy, confidence, freedom, or abundance, the more likely your subconscious is to register that image as meaningful. Emotional resonance accelerates the embedding process. It creates what neuroscientists call emotional tagging, a process in which experiences associated with high emotional intensity are prioritized by the brain for storage and recall. The more emotionally rich your visualization, the deeper its impact. Visualization also works by influencing the brain's prediction system. The brain is a predictive machine. It constantly tries to anticipate what will happen next based on past experiences and internal models. When you visualize your goal regularly, you are essentially feeding the brain new data. Over time, this data updates the internal model, leading the brain to expect a new outcome. This shift in expectation changes your perception of the world and your behavior within it. You start to act in ways that are congruent with the imagined outcome because your brain is no longer rooted in old patterns or limitations. This is why people who visualize consistently often report that their desires start to unfold with less resistance and more synchronicity. It's also important to note that visualization is not a passive activity. It's not just daydreaming or wishful thinking. It requires focus, clarity, and deliberate practice. You must be intentional about what you visualize, how you visualize it, and how often. The more specific the details, the sights, sounds, smells, and sensations, the more immersive the experience becomes for the brain. Immersion leads to embodiment, and embodiment is what leads to real, lasting change. You begin to carry the energy of your future self in the present moment, which is one of the most powerful states for manifestation and transformation. Internal belief systems serve as the invisible operating codes of the human mind, governing how we interpret reality, how we feel about ourselves, and what we believe is possible. These belief systems are formed primarily in childhood through repetition, emotional experiences, authority figures, and social conditioning. Once established, they operate automatically, directing decisions, habits, and emotional reactions without the need for conscious thought. This is because the subconscious mind, which houses these belief systems, functions like a powerful, silent engine that shapes nearly every aspect of our behavior. When a belief becomes deeply embedded, it filters how we see the world and how we interact with it. Every piece of information we receive, every opportunity we notice or ignore, and every step we take toward a goal is filtered through this internal lens. This is why people with strong limiting beliefs often find themselves stuck even when external circumstances seem favorable. If someone subconsciously believes they are not worthy of success, their mind will find subtle ways to sabotage efforts, overlook opportunities, or downplay achievements. Not because they don't want success consciously, but because their internal program is running an opposite script. This internal dissonance creates friction between desire and belief, making progress feel exhausting or inconsistent. On the other hand, when internal belief systems are aligned with the desired outcome, everything flows more naturally. The individual takes bolder actions, interprets challenges as feedback rather than failure, and remains emotionally resilient in the face of uncertainty. Beliefs also influence our physiological responses. Studies in psychoneuroimmunology have shown that what we believe can actually affect how our bodies function, including our immune system, stress levels, and energy regulation. For example, someone who believes they are capable and resourceful tends to experience lower levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, and higher levels of dopamine and serotonin, the neurochemicals linked to motivation and well-being. These shifts in biochemistry further reinforce the belief, creating a self-sustaining loop. Belief leads to feeling, which leads to action, which leads to evidence, which then strengthens the belief. This is why it is crucial to identify and reprogram limiting beliefs if one wants to manifest anything effortlessly. The subconscious mind does not distinguish between truth and fiction. It accepts repeated information as fact, especially when delivered with emotion and authority. This is the same principle behind advertising, social conditioning, and early childhood programming. Repetition, combined with emotion, creates belief. That means new, empowering beliefs can be installed using the same methods. Daily affirmations, emotional visualization, and self-hypnosis are powerful tools for rewriting the subconscious script. When practiced regularly, they begin to replace the old patterns with new, empowering narratives. This shift is not just mental, it translates directly into changes in behavior, attitude, and results. Another powerful technique for reshaping belief systems is the use of evidence stacking. The brain is constantly scanning for proof that supports what it already believes. By consciously directing attention to small wins, positive feedback, and any form of progress, we can begin to build a case for a new belief. The more frequently this is done, the more the subconscious begins to accept the new belief as reality. This is especially effective when combined with journaling or voice recordings where you review and reinforce the progress you're making. Over time, these small shifts accumulate, transforming the way you perceive yourself and your capabilities. Language also plays a significant role in belief formation. The words we use when we speak to ourselves shape our inner reality. Saying things like "I always mess up" or "this never works for me" sends a message to the subconscious that failure is expected and normal. On the other hand, statements like "I am learning to succeed," "I trust the process," or "I am worthy of what I desire" send new instructions to the mind. When these phrases are used consistently and paired with visualization or physical movement, they become even more effective. Movement activates the motor cortex and embeds the belief more deeply into the body's memory systems, making it feel more real. Beliefs are also contagious. The people we surround ourselves with influence our internal narratives. If we spend time with individuals who doubt our dreams or constantly express limitation, it reinforces our own internal doubts. But if we engage with people who think expansively, take bold action, and speak from a place of abundance, their beliefs begin to resonate with us. Mirror neurons in the brain actually cause us to absorb the emotional and mental states of those around us, making community a powerful factor in belief transformation. This is why support groups, masterminds, and mentorship are not just helpful, they are neurologically and psychologically strategic. Internal belief systems act as the gatekeepers between intention and outcome. They determine what feels possible, what feels safe, and what we are willing to reach for. Without shifting these internal programs, no amount of effort or external strategy will create sustainable change. The alignment of belief with vision is what allows goals to move from the realm of imagination into lived experience. The nervous system plays a foundational role in how we experience, interpret, and respond to the world around us, and understanding how to regulate it can unlock greater access to clarity, energy, and focused manifestation. The nervous system, made up of the brain, spinal cord, and vast network of nerves, is responsible for sensing information, processing it, and coordinating the body's responses. It operates through two primary branches: the sympathetic nervous system, which governs fight or flight responses, and the parasympathetic nervous system, which supports rest, digestion, and healing. When the nervous system is dysregulated, either overly activated or shut down, the ability to focus on goals, stay emotionally balanced, and act with confidence is compromised. Regulation is what brings the body and brain into an optimal state for creating and receiving. When the nervous system is in a regulated state, the prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning, decision-making, and higher-order thinking, becomes more active. This is the part of the brain that allows you to envision the future, hold a clear mental image, and take steps toward it in a grounded and strategic way. When the nervous system is overactivated due to stress, fear, or overstimulation, the body is flooded with cortisol and adrenaline. These chemicals are useful for short bursts of survival-related action, but they suppress long-term thinking and creativity. They shrink the bandwidth of perception and cause the mind to fixate on immediate threats. Manifestation becomes nearly impossible in this state because the body is signaling danger, not openness, possibility, or receptivity. On the other hand, a calm and balanced nervous system allows for access to states of flow and coherence. Coherence is a condition in which the heart, brain, and body are synchronized in their rhythms, resulting in a sense of clarity, peace, and expanded awareness. When people talk about being in alignment or in the zone, they are often describing a coherent nervous system state. In this condition, the mind is open to new ideas, intuition becomes sharper, and actions feel effortless. It is in these states that the subconscious is most receptive to new inputs, and the body is primed to carry out purposeful, aligned behavior. Regulation is not just about relaxation, it is about returning the nervous system to its most powerful centered position. Breathwork is one of the most direct and accessible ways to regulate the nervous system. Controlled breathing techniques can shift the body out of a sympathetic state and into a parasympathetic one within minutes. Slow, deep inhales followed by extended exhales activate the vagus nerve, a critical component in calming the nervous system. This type of breathing lowers heart rate, decreases stress hormones, and increases alpha brain waves associated with calm focus. Practicing this before visualization, decision-making, or public speaking can significantly increase one's ability to stay connected to vision and purpose. Breath becomes a remote control for the nervous system, allowing access to intentional states of being regardless of external conditions. Another essential practice for nervous system regulation is movement. Gentle physical activity such as walking, yoga, or stretching helps discharge excess energy and stress hormones from the body. Movement provides sensory feedback to the brain that the body is safe and mobile, which in turn reduces signals of threat. This is especially helpful when trying to break free from states of mental stagnation or emotional overwhelm. Even brief movement sessions can reset the nervous system, restore cognitive function, and improve emotional regulation. Over time, incorporating regular movement becomes a way to maintain a baseline state of nervous system health, making it easier to return to balance after stress or adversity. Sleep and circadian rhythm also play a vital role in nervous system function. The body repairs, restores, and integrates during sleep. A dysregulated sleep cycle leads to chronic inflammation, mood instability, and cognitive fatigue, all of which impair the ability to visualize clearly, maintain belief, and take inspired action. Maintaining a consistent sleep schedule, limiting artificial light before bedtime, and avoiding stimulants in the evening all support nervous system regulation. Deep sleep in particular is when the brain performs its most critical housekeeping tasks, clearing out waste and reinforcing the neural connections most used during the day. If manifestation practices are taking place while the nervous system is exhausted or depleted, results will be inconsistent or blocked. Connection with others is another powerful regulator of the nervous system. The human nervous system is designed for co-regulation, meaning that calm, supportive presence from others helps bring one's own system into balance. Eye contact, touch, and emotionally attuned communication can all send signals to the brain that it is safe to relax and open up. This is why people often feel more centered, motivated, or clear after talking with a trusted friend or mentor. Being in an environment of emotional safety allows the nervous system to soften, which creates a foundation for deeper creativity, insight, and forward movement. Surrounding oneself with people who are also emotionally regulated amplifies this effect. Sound, rhythm, and nature exposure also contribute significantly to nervous system balance. Gentle, rhythmic sounds like soft music, chanting, or even the hum of certain frequencies can activate the parasympathetic system. Exposure to natural light during the morning helps reset the body's internal clock and stabilize energy levels throughout the day. Immersing in nature or even gazing at natural imagery reduces stress markers in the body and promotes brain states linked with calm focus. Incorporating these elements into daily life reinforces a stable internal environment that supports sustained attention, emotional clarity, and a deep sense of readiness to receive and act on one's intentions.